Hello and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics podcast, number 38. I'm your host, Brian. With me tonight, Kimberly.
Hi, everybody.
And Eric, number 1.
Eric with a C, with a K.
With a K. Yes, Eric with a K. Ian.
Greetings.
And we have Mac.
Hey, everybody.
And we have our special guest tonight, Eric Neer.
Hello.
And,
Yay.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Have a good 4th?
Quite well.
Quite well?
Night.
All right. Did you have a good 4th?
Yeah, that was a week ago. That's like ancient history these
I
days.
know.
But yeah, it was good.
Yes.
I don't remember it very well, so it must have been good.
Very nice 4th.
All right. Well,
Uneventful.
yeah. Well, good. So we have Eric Neer here tonight to talk about his new website, Atheist for Humanity, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to charitable giving, volunteer work, and the good of humanity. Eric, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do here?
That was a pretty good summary. Yeah, Atheist for Humanity, we were approved as a 501c3 last year, I think about October, and started putting up the website, got it up and running, and beta tested and everything around April or May of this year, and we've been up and running fully for about 2 months now. And the main goal, like any website like ours, is to raise money for worthwhile charities. That's the primary goal. The secondary goal, however, is to give atheists, whatever you want to call non-believers, naturalists, humanists, anybody who's comfortable with those labels, give them a place to donate money to charities in the name of atheism. In other words, to let people in this country and eventually hopefully the rest of the world know that atheists are out there, they're good people, and they do good things. And for what I think is a pretty pure reason, because we're not trying to buy an afterlife, we're not trying to appease a church or do it because a religious person told us to. We just do it because we're good people and we want to help out. So that's kind of the two primary goals. Raise the money, do it in the name of atheism. But being a convenience kind of guy, I also wanted to put some other things in there. And when I donate to charities, one thing I don't like is getting on mailing lists. Because you give them 15 cents, and then you're on their mailing list for eternity, or however much you give them. So
Right.
I wanted to create something where my people donors could come to the website, donate to charities, and we wouldn't pass along their information to the charities. They just get a check from AFH, from Atheists for Humanity. So they don't get added on any mailing lists. So I thought that was a big plus. The other thing that we wanted to have is we wanted to have it be kind of a one-stop shop. So we went out and we got a shopping cart, and we wanted to make it to where people could go on and pick as many charities as they wanted to, donate however much they wanted to each individual charity, and do it all in one transaction. You only have to fill out your address once. You only have to put in your credit card once. So we also wanted a big convenience aspect to it, too.
Okay.
So that's kind of the general gist of what the site does and why it was set up.
So now, what are the criteria that you're looking for to put a site on here then?
Okay, well, first of all, we list the charities, but we don't list their sites.
Okay.
So, obviously, if anybody wants to find the Red Cross or LLS or anything like that, they can Google it. The goal is to keep people on the site. We give them a summary of the charity, and then they can donate through there. The main criteria we're looking for is mainly that they're secular. It's not to say if they receive funding from religious organizations we wouldn't look at them, but we want to ensure that the money that we're donating is not going towards the purchase of religious materials that are to be distributed, proselytization, anything like that. So that's the main thing. We also look at their expense ratios, which is a big one. And the site that we use is the American Institute of Philanthropy. And they've kind of got a general guidebook of charities that are A+, B+, that sort of thing. And so we want to be very careful that we're not funding any charities who spend, 50, 60% on corporate jets and payroll and things like that. Most of the money needs to go to the program. So those are the two biggest things.
Yeah, so on that point right there, I guess I have... I don't know. I have some qualms about that because, on one hand, I can understand why you want most of your dollars to be going to helping people, but there's something to be said for giving money so that the organization continue to run and hire good people. And if you're looking very much at their overhead and saying, okay, we only want them to be spending 5% on salaries, that really is going to restrict what a charity can do as far as getting good people and getting out there. And the other problem I have with that is that if you're not giving enough money into oversight, then how do you know that the dollars are being spent well?
That's a good point. We don't actually dig that deep into to what they do within those allocations.
Okay.
We're using the American Institute of Philanthropy. We're using their guidelines to say these are top rated, these are top performing charities. It's not to say that they're looking for charities that squeeze their admin dollars or that don't hire quality people. We just don't want 60 or 70% of the money going towards those expenses, because in my opinion, if you're spending 70% on people and only 30% on programs, that doesn't sound too efficient to me. And some charities have gotten in trouble for some of those things. The Boy Scouts of America is one of them that got busted. I don't know, it's been years back,
right,
because the CEO was making well over $1 million, and that kind of upset some people. So, like I said, we do rely on the Institute of Philanthropy to kind of give us some guidelines to that. But we're looking for roughly about 60% to be spent on programs.
Okay, so you're not trying to squeeze the top, but you do want to make sure that your dollars are being spent appropriately.
Correct.
And
like
remember
I said,
that it's sorry.
No, go ahead, Kim.
It's a percentage. So I mean, if it's a really big charity that gets in big names, you're talking about a larger pool to go to their salaries.
Right.
But I've heard that there's some charities, where for every dollar you give them, 90 cents goes to people on the board and all these different expenses that really aren't serving the purpose of why you gave that dollar. So I think it's a fairly good indicator, and it doesn't sound like what you're doing is trying to, be like, oh, if you spent more than a nickel trying to keep the lights on, you must be wasting it.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
But my concern is when you look at charities and from that point of view, that sometimes they're scraping by in trying to give as much money away that they're not focusing on giving it away effectively. And so one of the things when I give to a charity, I want to know that they have enough administration and enough oversight to be sure that the dollars are being spent effectively. Because if they're giving 60% of their money, to fund these things, but yet it's not being done effectively, you end up with vaccines sitting in a warehouse.
True. Yeah, and that's actually kind of difficult to dig down into. To really figure out where they're spending their monies. I mean, they'll publish budgets and things like that, 990s and whatnot. But to really get in deep and figure out how they're spending their money we don't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we're looking mainly for the expenses and for organizations that have a good reputation.
So, Eric, you said that you tend to avoid the organizations that are getting more, less secular funding, that are getting funding more from church organizations and things like that. It sounds like you're going to be hitting some of the organizations that kind of need the help more anyway.
Well, so far I haven't had to avoid them. It's just one of the criteria that we look at. And it's ironically, it's not something I'm really too concerned about, because if they're heavily religious, chances are they probably don't want to be featured on our site.
right.
Now, I could be stereotyping there, but it's not something I think I'm going to have to worry too much about. But we do try and take a look at it. For instance, one of the ones that I'm going to have to dive into is Habitat for Humanity. I wasn't aware that it was a religious organization.
Yep.
And one of my members said that he's an atheist, and he went and volunteered one day, and they had a big group prayer before the project started. So I have to find out exactly, I have to get some more details on them before we can, work with them. And
is the organization itself religious, or is it just a bunch of people who happen to spontaneously get together and have a prayer?
Exactly.
Because they themselves are religious.
Yeah, if a group of people that are there, or maybe it was a church that day that happened to be there, and they were all the ones that were volunteering. I don't know. So I have to look into that a little bit closer before we can work with them, because we don't want to send the wrong message one way or the other.
The thing though that I like about this is that I know that when I give through this, even say Habitat for Humanity is a religious organization, but I mean, let's say that they're doing overwhelming good, and that they're not going around building churches, and they're doing exactly what they say they are. I guess I wouldn't have a problem giving money to them as long as the money is being spent appropriately. And if I gave through your site, at least we know that it's a humanist giving money to Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I don't, it's not that we won't work with organizations that have are slightly religious. We just, the atheists aren't going to be too pleased if they find out their donations are going to purchase Bibles and try and convert people and things like that. So we want to be careful when it's that obvious. But we would work with a church or something if they wanted to do a fundraiser where all the money went to a certain cause, or do a volunteer activity where everybody's out cleaning up the side of the road. I don't have any problem with that at all. I mean, We're not in fact, if you look on our website, we are not political in any way, shape, or form, other than we want to do good things in the name of atheism. So we're pretty open.
And did you say that the charities that you're working with, kind of, you have an agreement, you're not just writing them a check, you've already had correspondence that they want to be part of this?
Some of them. The big national ones have been a little bit more difficult to get a hold of. So right now with those, let me put it this way. The ones that haven't so far, some of them, they cash the check.
Right.
So they've gotten a letter saying, this is coming from Atheist, you're on our website, do some good things with it. Everybody's cashed the check so far. So the bigger national ones have been a little bit more difficult to get a hold of. There was one in particular that said that they did not want to be part of us, which kind of surprised me. I probably should be good and not say the name of them.
Right.
But
we're not good on this show, Eric.
We're not good? Okay.
No, our design is to be evil. So
Right. Our reputations are soiled, but you should protect yours.
According to the leverage, it's the Erics with the K's that are the evil ones, so you should be good.
Okay. I will say that it is an animal organization, an animal protection organization, one whose banners you see on a lot of websites. Let's just put it that way. And it was interesting because I sent it up to one person, they passed it on to their legal department, and somebody from their legal department, their reply to me was, and I quote, "No thanks," end quote.
Huh.
That's it. It just said, "No thanks."
Well, they were direct.
They were direct, and it's one of those legal things like, well, we can't get in trouble for saying that. They can't sue us for saying no thanks. But I was kind of surprised, so I dug into it a little deeper, and one of the marketing people basically said, well, we think it's sort of misleading that your organization takes a percentage of the donation and that we don't get all the money. And I said, well, isn't that what every single nonprofit in the world does, because we all have to pay for expenses? But they didn't want to argue, so they chose not to.
Yeah. So we should talk about that, because when we give money through your site, we are giving 5% of it to you for your overhead. Correct. And so, and I don't really have a problem with that, because you gave me a way to donate to a charity, and have a certain, and feel like there's a certain amount of criteria being met when I give that money. So, so I'm giving you that money so that I know that the charity has been checked out. So people have to be paid to do that. And then the site has to be maintained somehow. What else am I paying for?
Actually, you're not even paying for the people. We don't make a dime off of any of this. Everything that I do, everything that a couple of my helpers do is all volunteer. So we actually have really, really, really low expense ratios, and when we get to the point where we're doing a lot of volume, the 5% will probably drop down to 3 or 2.5. Mainly, all it covers is the credit card processing, which is 2 point something or other and 30 cents per transaction, something like that. And then it covers the website and the shopping cart, which we have monthly. We had to have a custom shopping cart built.
Okay.
And that's mainly what it covers.
Can you give a shout out to the people who are on your team? I'd love to know who they are, and you can tell them they've now been on Amateur Skeptics.
You can out them here.
I can. Right now, I have two people that have signed on, Jackie and Drew. And the main things that Jackie and Drew are helping me with right now is we just did our launch party, and Jackie helped a little bit with that, and that went very well. Had about 75 people show up, so that was good. And mainly what we're trying to do right now is just outreach, to get out to all the atheist groups and all the secular groups and humanists and anybody we think will be interested in us, just asking them to let their members know that we're here.
Awesome. So and I think the outreach is so great. I mean, we've talked about it on the show, and just it seems to come up in lots of conversations about just who atheists are and how we're perceived, and getting that word out there that it's not a bad word. These aren't bad people or anything like that. So I think, I love the fact that it's in the name. You were mentioning at the beginning of this, whatever people want to identify with. And I certainly think people can and should identify however they want to. But I really applaud you for just... This is the one that bites, if you will, that has a lot of a lot of connotations to it. And I really applaud you for putting it right there in the title and just going for it.
Thank you. We actually, I also run the Denver Atheist Meetup, and one of the words that we always use, and the poor people in my group hear me say this all the time, but the word that what we're shooting for is destigmatization. We don't like the stigma behind atheism, because atheists are by and large good people. They're smart, they're educated, they're law-abiding, they pay their taxes, they give to charity, largely independent usually, which is why it's hard to get us assembled, but we're working on that. And some of the, the two most charitable people in history as far as monetarily speaking are both atheists, and that's Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. And so, these guys have given millions, if not billions of dollars to charity. Now, they didn't do it in the name of atheism. I sure wish they would have. But they're generally considered non-believers, and they're very charitable. And, of course, there's all the people in history that have been atheists or thought to be atheists that were very, very influential and did amazing things for the world. So I would like to be...
We've talked about on the podcast here, generally speaking, atheists are actually better informed religiously than people who are religious.
Yeah, I've told some of my people I've spoken to who are religious, I said, be very careful when you get into an argument about, biblical things or the Bible and text, because they're usually really, really well educated on it, and they may know it better than you do.
Well, one of the things that we can also point out is that there are two very, very wealthy religious figures who give nothing to charity, and they're millionaires, Pat Robertson and Harold Camping.
Well, yeah, but Pat Robertson considers himself a charity.
Well, that's true, but he's a millionaire.
That's
he's got money to spread.
A millionaire was by taking donations. Let's not confuse that.
And Camping's the Messiah.
Oh, right. I forget.
Yes,
but
pimping the Messiah can get you a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. So well, and that's the other hurdle you have going for you is that having a religious backing of some sort will bring in money. You don't have that here.
No. In fact, we always joke about where do we find the affluent atheists. They're an elusive creature, I'll tell you. But they're out there somewhere. And, the whole goal, and the reason I think this is going to work is because as we gain momentum, as people like Bill Maher continue to come out and openly admit to being an atheist and have no shame or trepidation about admitting it, every day is a little bit better to be an atheist. And I would love to see the day when it's actually something to aspire to. Because one of the other things that we've talked about in the atheist group is that, and you said I can kind of swear and be...
Absolutely. Let it out.
Here, but it takes some serious balls to be an atheist. Really, when you think about what you have to, especially if you were raised with religion, think about what you're giving up. Not only are you going to get an infinite amount of crap from your friends and your family and your church and everybody else, but you're giving up an eternity of everything you ever dreamed of, everything you've ever wanted, God's love, Jesus' love, whatever. You have to give all that up. Atheism only offers reality, and that's kind of bleak and dark and cold.
Yep.
So
you know what, though? It's
really
not,
takes
though.
A lot of courage.
I have a completely different view of this because by releasing all of that and saying, there's no evidence for an afterlife. So I have to do what I can do with this life right now and do whatever I want to do. And in a lot of ways, that's very affirming as opposed to, I'll get by in this life, I'll try to be good so that I can get to the real life.
Yeah. Now, a smart believer would say, I'm going to do both. But I still am going to keep, I'm still going to keep Pascal's wager and say, just in case that afterlife is there. But I'm still going to make the best of this life. I don't have to give up religion. So one of the things we joke about a lot is that the atheists don't have much of a marketing campaign. We don't have anything to sell. What's the benefit of this? Why not just stick with that old Pascal's wager and say, well, just in case I'll go to church on Christmas and Easter and, we'll hope for the best.
Right,
It's
you got that
decision.
basically society built-in sorority or fraternity of like, hey, I'm a Christian. Well, then you're in. You're my buddy.
That's right.
That you do. You give up a lot.
And that's all you have to say, really. That's all you have to say. All you have to say as a Christian. There's no qualifications. You don't have to know the Bible very well.
There's no intelligence test.
No.
Right,
And there are certainly very, very intelligent people who are believers, but they don't require that you know anything, certainly about what you believe or why you believe it. It's very open club. You just have to be able to say, it's kind of the anti-atheist sort of thing, in that as long as you say you're a Christian, you're in. That's all you need.
Right, but is God going to buy that? I mean, if there isn't enough evidence and you're not convinced and you just go through with it just in case, if there's a God, is he going to say, well, you didn't really believe, did you? You just hedged your bets.
Probably
Would he
not.
know?
But then again, as an atheist, what do you have to lose by that? Or I'm not as an atheist, but as a kind of fence sitter. You could say, well, he might give me a couple of points just for hanging in there and listening to the message. So that's why I say I think it's a pretty brave move to just cast it all aside and say, I'm not even gonna hang in there for that much.
Yeah, well, he also might reward you for going with your convictions.
That's true. And that's what a lot of atheists would say, is that if there's a God that's so petty and so insecure,
Egomaniacal?
Right.
that too, that he's going to punish me for not worshiping him, I'd probably just rather go to hell with the lawyers and the rock stars.
Right.
Because it's going to be more fun anyways.
Absolutely.
There's going to be good music and lots to drink, you know?
All right,
Well,
so...
hell has all the best tunes, but I think heaven has all the best choreographers.
All right, we're definitely off the rails here. We've got away from which is fine. I just want to make sure, have we talked about everything we need to talk about for this site? Is there anything else that needs to be said here? I mean, what's coming up? What are the future plans for what you're going to do?
I'd like to hear how you're, I know one of the things you want to do is to make sure people know that atheists are giving. Do you have any kind of a plan for getting into the media?
Actually, yeah, I do. There's a couple of different things there. First of all, back on the site, I should mention, even though I'm not entirely sold on the merits, we do have Facebook and Twitter. I'm kind of a late adopter when it comes to certain social technologies, so I'm still a little bit of a virgin using them. But they are out there, and I'm trying to keep them updated. So if anybody wants to kind of keep an eye on what's going on, that's usually where I announce the new charities that we've added, because we do add them occasionally. As far as the future goes, there's a couple of things. The main thing we're doing right now is the outreach, because we're not going to get the attention of the media or even some of the bloggers or the big atheists until we have the numbers to show, look, this is serious.
Right.
And we're doing good. We did a couple $100 the first month. We did over $350 last month as far as donations went, and we're continuing to build. So once we get some momentum, the one good thing about atheism being sort of a negative thing right now is I think the press does like it because it's kind of controversial. So when we can walk into the newspaper or the news station and say, guess what? Atheists this year have raised however much, $50,000 or whatever for charity, that the money and the name atheist will get their attention. And so it'll be easier for us to get into the media because we're controversial. So that's one good thing about it.
Yeah.
But right now we have to get the momentum in, and what I'm hoping is that more of the groups will pick up on us and see that we're out there, the meetup groups and all the different national organizations, and we'll just tell their members, hey, this is a place you can go. It's anonymous. You won't get on mailing lists. You can donate as much as you want, even if it's $10, whatever, because there's two numbers that we're looking for, the money that we raise and the number of people that donate. So it's great if we have one person put in $1,000, but it's also great if we have 100 people put in $10, because then we can say 100 atheists have donated or 1,000 atheists have donated. So, yeah, so you guys know how the media works in this country. They have to have a reason to print it, and numbers tend to talk. So we'll be doing. So that's one aspect. The other aspect that we'll get rolling here is once we get once we get a little bit more momentum and some more volunteers also, we'll start doing some volunteer events. I want to do a couple of different types of fundraisers, a little bit different fundraisers than people are used to, and I'll talk about that real quick in just a second. But we also want to do some stuff, giving blood, picking trash up on the highway, just general community volunteer things.
Give vaccines? You want to? Can we do a vaccine clinic?
Sure.
All right.
Sure, absolutely. The main thing right now that AFH needs, besides money and people visiting the site, is just people that want to get involved. I've got the Denver Atheist meetup and I also organize a science meetup on the side. So I'm kind of stretched right now. So I'm looking for, my next step is going to be looking for volunteers that just want to take on a project, a blood drive or something like that, and just run with it. But all those things are coming up. We're also going to try and put together a couple of fundraisers that I think are a little bit unique. One of the ideas we've had is set up a couple of volleyball nets, because volleyball is my church, and take people out and teach them how to play volleyball for a day. Go out in the park, $10 a person, whatever, and actually give people something in return other than just saying, hey, come to the bar, spend some money on drinks, and then give us some money. Give them something back. So we're gonna experiment with some things like that so that people actually get a little bit more value than just handing over money to a charity.
Right.
So, and that's going to be a little bit experimental. I've never really seen charities do something like that. But,
well, yeah, the Democrats and Republicans do that kind of stuff all the time. They have that's the kind of fundraisers they have. They have their regular things. They'll have their champagne and chocolates dinner and stuff like that, and that's pretty common for them to do that kind of stuff. And they set it's going to be $50 a head. And so you come and you socialize and, you eat your chocolate and you drink your champagne and that's how they do a lot of their fundraising.
Yeah. But I want to do something where people actually kind of get something back other than food and drink, because that's pretty easy. And this way, I mean, again, we're not making any money off of this, so it doesn't cost me very much to get a couple of volleyball nets, set them up in the park, bring some bottled water, and let people play volleyball for a couple hours. They pay $10 or $15. They get to meet people. It's social. It's fun. It's exercise. It's healthy. It's outdoors. All that good stuff. And they get a little bit something back for their money.
Okay.
And yet they can still take the full tax deduction, too, for doing the donation.
Right.
And hopefully we'll probably have like a keyword or something where people can actually sign up through the website, do their credit card for $10 or $15 or whatever, and then show up for volleyball. So we're going to experiment with some things like that, just to make it a little bit more fun.
Now, can you set up reoccurring stuff through this? Say every month I want to give $25 to these different charities and rotate them or something. Is there anything like that you guys have set up?
We have that ability with the shopping cart. We just have to have them activate it, and there's a couple of things that we need to do to tweak that, but that is coming.
See, because any time that you can get somebody to lock in to a recurring revenue type of thing, they don't have to think about it. They're just going to give that money every month, and they'll get used to not having it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one thing we want to do. Another thing that we'd like to do, because we had a lot of debate on the whole 5% thing at first, and my CPA is the one that said, you're going to have expenses, you've got to do this. So, but one of the things we've also talked about is seeing if we can find another organization, one of the national organizations, or maybe like the Gay and Lesbian Foundation. They do a lot of grants and stuff. Find somebody who will actually commit themselves to paying our monthly expenses. Because if we don't raise any money, we don't really have much in the way of expenses. So they would say, as long as you make X amount of money, we will give you a grant to cover your expenses. And then everything that we have would be passed through to the charities.
Oh, that would be nice.
That would be great. Because it'd be nice to do 100% pass through and just say, hey, we didn't take anything. Somebody else covered this because we're out there working our butts off and raising money.
You may not know the answer to this, but what's the difference between giving through you and giving through the Richard Dawkins Foundation? Because doesn't he do kind of the same type of thing where you can give money through him and they give that to charities?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of the Humanists have one as well, and there's also Freedom from Belief Foundation.
Okay.
And the Freedom from Belief Foundation, I hope I'm getting that name right. What they do is you go through their site and you donate or you do a recurring. They pick 10 different charities per quarter, and that money that you donate goes to those charities. As far as I've been able to tell, Dawkins and the Humanist Group, their funds are relief funds. So when you donate to them, they give it to, right now it's going to Japanese relief.
Okay.
So as far as I know, there's no other site out there that basically is kind of a reverse shopping cart like ours where you can say, okay, I like this charity, I'll give them $20. And, ooh, I like this one too, and I'll give them 10. And, oh, that's my favorite, and I'll do 50. And do it as a one-stop shop.
Sure.
I wasn't able to find anything like that. Certainly nothing atheist.
Yeah.
And I guess I should have pointed that out. That's one of the main reasons I did this also, is because I went looking for this thinking that I could donate money and do some good in the name of atheism. I couldn't find anything. So I was really surprised at that.
The only site that I can really think of that really digs in is GiveWell, and they really are dig in and have high standards for their charities. But it's not necessarily secular.
Yeah, they have their logo is a big tree, right?
I think so. Yeah, GiveWell.
Yeah, I am familiar with them.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if they allow you to pick and choose and donate multiple, different amounts to each one. I haven't checked into it that far. But again, like Kimberly pointed out, ours is done in the name of atheism.
Right.
And while that may not be a big distinction to some people, as far as the mission of trying to destigmatize atheism, we had to have it in the title. And again, Bill Gates gave millions of billions of dollars, but he certainly didn't say, here's your money in the name of an atheist.
Right.
So we want to get the word across that atheists are good, responsible, smart, brave people. They're just trying to do some good for themselves, their fellow man, their family. Good people.
Yeah.
Just don't wear the scarlet A on our chest, most of us.
Nah. The only reason I know about GiveWell is because they were featured on the Rationally Speaking podcast.
Okay.
And it doesn't look like they have a pie chart on here. I don't see a tree. But they do something interesting where they're looking at the effectiveness of the charity.
Okay. Yeah, so they're screening them a little bit.
Yeah, they're screening them a lot. If you look at their criteria, they give you a list of questions that you can evaluate a charity with, and it's quite extensive.
Yeah, this is a different one than I'm looking at it now. This is different than the one I was thinking of. I will look at this. I will check at that. So yeah.
So you're kind of suggesting that Atheists for Humanity is going to continue to evolve?
Absolutely. In fact,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
One of my big goals is I'd love to have this be something where we have Atheists for Humanity, Colorado, Texas, New York, have one in every state, because one of the things that we can't do is we can't feature local charities from every state. It would just get so overwhelming, and there would be so many checks to cut and whatnot. So there's thousands and thousands and thousands of charities out there. It's not reasonable to put them on our site. So right now we're trying to balance a little bit between some of the local ones here in Denver that we believe are good, and then some of the big national ones that people who are outside of Denver may want that choice. But it would be great to be able to have somebody say, I want to open up a branch in Texas, and then it's atheistforhumanity.org/Texas. And then it takes you to their shopping cart, which hopefully looks just like ours. And then they feature the national charities, but also their local ones. I'd love to see it spread countrywide.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that would be awesome to have that many people involved and have that many people pushing it. Because again, the more people that are into this, that are volunteering and helping out, the more the word gets spread, the more media we get, the more attention we get, and the more we can start telling people, hey, it's all right to be an atheist. In fact, it's something admirable. So that's a long-term goal.
Well, I like the idea of the positive outreach too.
Yeah, we don't want to get into politics. We all certainly have our own beliefs about the way things should be, and we all certainly have our opinions about religion. But we decided early on that this is not the place for that.
Sure.
Plenty of organizations fighting, separation of church and state, and evolution and creationism in schools, and as passionate as we are about some of those things, this just isn't the platform, because that's the only way we're going to destigmatize things is to do it through positive.
Right.
I think there's a fine line for atheist picketing between when you're being effective and when you're changing your perception by the public is that you're just being a pain in the ass. And I think it almost sometimes when they picket things, I think it almost generates empathy for the people that they're picketing against.
Yeah,
and, I don't think it helps us much.
No, but it is. I think it's important. Like the ACLU is doing a lot of fighting for separation of church and state, but yet they also go to bat when they feel like people are being persecuted for their religious beliefs.
Sure.
So I mean, they try and keep a pretty balanced view. They keep and keep it where it's appropriate.
Yeah, but when atheists specifically go out and
Right.
protest something as atheists, I think it tends to backfire.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
I mean, it's unfortunate because we really should be the voice, one of the voices at the table in those arguments. When they put the nativity scene on the steps of the Denver courthouse, or the Capitol, whichever it is, that is something that certainly needs to be addressed. But when it's just atheists out there, I don't think it does us much good. What I'd like to see is that the atheists go out and fight for equal representation among all the religions on the steps. Now that would be cool.
Well, what would we put up there?
Well, not us, but, we would be saying, hey, if you're going to allow a Christian symbol or a Christian scene, then you should allow the Jews to put up what they want, and you should allow the Muslims to put up what they want.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would actually get a lot more interesting press, and I think atheists would actually be seen in a really different light if they tried something like that, rather than just saying, this is a separation and you can't do this. And we're atheists, and I think it backfires.
Okay.
And I think it gets the Christians all pumped up and so you can't do that. But if
Well,
we said
if they feel persecuted.
Yeah,
Yeah, much like they're persecuting us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But they don't. I mean, maybe they pick at atheists. I don't know. You don't see it very often, but maybe it happens. They don't have to. They've got 75% of the nation supposedly is Christian. So, but I don't know. I just think that when we pick it in the name of atheism, it tends to backfire a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we need to move on at this point.
Yeah.
We got a lot of other stuff in our document. So, Eric, you can stay on with us, or if you got other things to do, you can go about them.
No, I'll hang in there for a bit. I
Very
really
good.
appreciate you guys letting me on, though. Sorry if I
no
sputtered
problem.
on so long.
No, you're fine. And as we go through these, don't be polite. If you got something to say, jump in. So
I've been good at that most of my life.
yeah, well,
We're
good.
all about the exchange of ideas here.
Yes. So now this is we're going to move on to the article that we skipped last week, and I was already making fun of, and I said we'd be talking about. So we're going to let Ian talk about how the shape of a woman's pout may mean better sex.
Is Ian actually here?
Yeah, he's actually here tonight.
Yeah, my computer's working fine, so I'm not cutting in and out.
Yeah. So
we're doing good.
So do this quickly, would you?
Okay. This study, what was it done in? I think it was the UK, wasn't it?
I
It seemed, I think so.
258 mainly Scottish women of mean age of 27 years. They did a study with them, and somehow, I'd love to know exactly how they determined this. According to their findings, the shape of a woman's lips are relevant to how good of an orgasm they can have.
And this is a self-reported study, right? How did they get this information?
I would kind of
it's a
think
paper published
rating your
Journal of
orgasm has to
Sexual
be a
Medicine.
self-reporting thing.
Right, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. You do. I do wonder about it. I'm making fun of it myself, but anything that deals with sex, I enjoy talking about.
And you didn't find this in the Daily Mail?
Apparently not this time. I don't think I have anything in the Daily Mail this time. So
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
have a hard time giving me crap over that.
No, we do have
But
fact
it
in
was
the end.
published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, so they're giving a little legitimacy to the study there. But apparently the guy that does this study has done many other studies like this. He's very obsessed with looking into sexual ideas. And, personally, I think the funner research would be hands-on. But I think that'd be a little...
So here are my problems with this study. One, it's 258 Scottish women. Okay, so that's one very, very small section of a population. I mean, how does this compare to Muslim women or Indian women or American women or...
Maybe the Scottish
Maybe
women just have better orgasms than...
Well, see, but how would we ever really compare that? What do we have? What machine are we going to build to do that?
I don't know, but I'd like to volunteer to help make it.
Absolutely.
There's an online survey.
Like I said, I'm all for the
Right.
hands-on study level on this one. Go out, do some hands-on work, really, figure it out yourself.
I'm presuming this one of his that links a woman's finger sensitivity to partnered sex behavior was probably hands-on.
I'm all in favor of sex research. I mean, I think it's fantastic. And, Bounce was a very fun book, right? But I just wonder how much
I think
good...
you mean bonk.
Bonk, I'm sorry,
Well, also
Bonk.
within the article,
Yes, I do mean bonk.
Bounce is good, too.
Bounce, yeah, Bounce was a great book.
That was another thing I remember.
Yeah.
Within the article itself, it does criticize the study for some of the same thing we're saying. It says the women themselves, rather than an independent party, judged the criteria. So, it's not a very accurate study, but it's definitely one of those that gets you thinking.
Oh, it's fun. I just don't know of what use it is to me.
My question here is, it's talking about the shape of a woman's lips and the measurement of the tubercle. Does getting collagen improve the orgasm? It's a question.
Right. All right. Enough said on that. We're gonna run
I'll
over
bring it up
again.
I'm sure.
Yeah, sure,
I've got to say, if getting collagen,
Anticlimactic after 2 weeks of
yeah,
build-up.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
if getting collagen does that and improves a woman's orgasm, then that actress in the new Transformers movie has got to be a firecracker in bed. That's all I've got to say.
Does collagen change the size of the tubercle?
I don't know. I think we've got enough stuff here, and with the interview, I'm going to skip my my report on the alkaline water, and we'll move that to next week.
Deserves a show of its own.
It does. I've got a lot going on with this here, so let's go ahead.
That's why I was running late. I started reading all your stuff, and I lost track of time. And I'm like, oh crap, the podcast. I gotta get everything out and set up.
I know. So let's go ahead and skip, because I have a lot there, and I have more too. So let's move on to our religious insanity section. Okay. So we're gonna move on to our favorite governor, Governor Perry, and from Texas, who wants to have he wants to pray for the economy, right? Is that the one that we're looking at here?
Yes.
And he wanted to pray for rain too. Last time we prayed for rain. This time we're praying for the economy.
Did it actually rain?
No, it didn't. No. Well, here it did.
I think you pray for rain. I think that involves
a dance,
costumes and dance.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
All right. So what do you got, Kim?
Well, I mean, we've got two articles here, and they're pretty related. So, just to be clear, so Governor Perry has August 6th down as a date for a statewide prayer to Jesus. So, as you say, save the economy and I guess natural disaster and terrorism too. And also paying your bills, because Jesus cares about all of those things.
Somehow spiritual. If you read the second article here, he says that everything that all the problems we're having, all it is a spiritual problem. That's it.
Right.
It can all be summed up as that.
And let's be fair here. He's being very inclusive. Anybody from any religion can come to this as long as they want to pray to Jesus Christ. They can't pray to their God. They have to pray to the Christian God, but all religions are welcome.
Yeah,
well, they don't have to pray to Jesus. They just have to be willing to accept his love.
Oh, that's right, because Jesus will save everybody.
Yeah, so that's the reason I pointed this out. I mean, we've already got the National Day of Prayer, unfortunately, still going on, even though I believe last year they were told to stop it. They did it again this year. But now, in addition to that, we've got this August 6th date. And yeah, so it drew a bunch of attacks from people who were basically saying that, this wasn't being fair to people of other faiths and stuff like that. And, they came out and basically said that, people of all faiths are absolutely, welcome to attend. And then also admitted that it was, I think the quote was basically, here we go. Regardless of their faith, tradition, or background, will feel the love, grace, and warmth of Jesus Christ in that assembly hall, in that arena. It's such a point to the fact that they really don't get it. When they say the separation of church and state, they only see it as a separation of the Christian church and the American state. And they don't get, I really don't think, even though they kind of mumble towards this idea that, yes, there are people of other faiths, they don't seem to really believe it. Don't you think that they just live in this little world where, my neighbor's Christian, I'm Christian, everybody's Christian.
Right.
Well, it's a Christian nation. I mean, that's the marketing that they've done. They've convinced everybody it was founded as a Christian nation. They even say that one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, it's true that it was founded by Christians, but that's as far as, they don't make the difference between founded as a Christian nation and founded by Christians as a secular nation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they not to, they don't miss anybody. They hit infidelity and of course, homosexuality as immoral here. So they're bringing up all their usual buzzwords.
Right.
It would be
interesting. And I suppose it is true that this is not being sponsored with tax dollars, which is good, because I think at that point then we really would have to roll over them and really call them to task. So they are being funded by the, standard bigoted groups out there, to your point, who apparently have just more money or as much money as God. But so it's funded separately. But just, having a state governor, and especially this, if I may, douchebag who now wants to run for president too, throwing this out there, as if this day of prayer is going to help anything, it's just so ridiculous and just missing such the point of what at least I think this country is supposed to be about. Like I say, the separation of church and state, letting people believe what they want to believe, not forcing your beliefs down other people's throats. They hit all of them.
Right.
I can't get over it.
Here's the problem with the day of prayer, though. It's been scientifically proven that prayer does help.
It
as
has?
long as nobody knows about it.
Well, okay, that's true. Eric, what were you going to say?
There was actually, I'm sure you guys some of you guys read the God Delusion.
Yep.
He actually cites a study in there where prayer actually, there was 3 groups. One, everybody was terminally ill, I believe. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, we know the study.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, in that case, it didn't really help. I mean, the people that knew it certainly didn't help, and the people who it didn't know, it didn't seem to affect them either. So, no, what I was going to say was, wouldn't it be interesting if an atheist showed up at this meeting and refused to pray? Because I'm supporting this, because I'd like the economy to get better, but I think you guys are all full of it.
Right. Well, the other thing that he's couching this as, not doing this as governor, right? This is not the state. It's him organizing this. But let's face it, if you're the governor, you are the state. Am I wrong? Isn't that the perception?
Well, the press will say Governor Perry. They won't
Right.
say his, Mr. Perry. They'll say Governor Perry.
Right. So it is being associated with the state.
His office. Yeah, his office is bigger than his name. I mean,
Right.
It's going to be the office of Governor Perry is involved in this.
So that's a little disingenuous.
More than a little.
Well, strangely, my dad lives in Dallas and was telling us this weekend that he actually is also, and this is kind of off the subject, but he's trying to charge tolls on roads that have already been built in order to help fund the state.
Yeah, they tried to do that in Colorado, too.
I think he's going to get it to pass, though. But,
Oh, well.
Yeah, the guy seems like he's just a bit off his rocker.
Can he get people really to agree to that?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he probably can in the name of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, Bush got some crazy stuff passed while he was there.
Well,
So
his Bush's ability to deregulate stuff that should be regulated was just fantastic.
yeah. Well, and he while I moved out shortly after this, but he's also got the concealed weapons law passed in Texas, which I thought was kind of scary, but he got that one through.
How is that different than ours?
I don't know how it's different now. Back in the day, we didn't have that in Colorado.
Mhm.
That was kind of a fairly new thing. I don't know if they had the waiting period at the time or not. It was just kind of scary that they would let people wear concealed weapons anywhere, and now Colorado has it too. But at the time, it was kind of frightening.
Yeah.
I think in
Isn't
Texas, though, it's mandatory, isn't it?
In Texas, I think that they pat you down, and if you're not carrying, they give you a gun and fine you.
I think, and Alaska's the same way. It's like, do you have a weapon? No,
Well,
really, it's okay. Do you have a
There's
weapon?
a good reason in
Oh,
Alaska.
here's one right now.
There's an excellent reason in Alaska. It's because of bears. It's seriously. The law in Alaska is because you have to be able to defend yourself against wildlife. The law in Texas is more traditional in nature, to do with Texas's, frontier past.
I don't know. I have my concealed weapons permit.
So does he think that Jesus doesn't know there's a recession going on? He just hasn't gotten the memo yet?
He's just waiting for people to really gather together and really mean it when they say that they don't.
Haven't
wanna
you
be
guys?
boring.
Haven't you watched Mr. Deity? He'll listen to like 3 messages and delete the other millions.
So if you get a big loud one going, you might get his attention.
Well, can you blame him when a million messages are "Oh God, I'm coming"?
Or, oh God, please, I'll never drink again.
Right, exactly. That's the other one.
Now I'm thinking about the Jim Carrey movie Bruce Almighty, where he's looking at all these prayers in his email, and he hits yes to all, and so like 10 million people won the lottery, and everybody got $1.
All right. Jewish court sentences dog to death by stoning.
And this has been updated as of today by Sean, who found the initial thing I thought was just silly, and it was just silly because apparently it someone invented it. Apparently, a dog did actually come into the courtroom, but according to the authorities, there was nothing about sending it to stoning, nothing about being a reincarnated lawyer. The story, however, claims that in a Jewish court, a dog entered the room and disrupted things, and one of the judges proclaimed it to be the reincarnated spirit of a lawyer from 20 years ago that he had problems with.
Where they had cursed.
Yeah.
They had cursed for his spirit to enter the body of a dog.
And so in order to deal with this beast, they sentenced it to stoning, but it escaped before they could carry out the sentence. So the updated thing says yes, although it doesn't actually say who did it or anything else, It just said that the paper that originally printed it has issued a apology and correction. But it's almost believable. That's one of the things.
Well, I mean, you say that. I mean, the problem, one of the issues with this is that it was probably not originally published in English. So you have to deal with a translation as well. And so what was the agenda of the translator? To sensationalize it. And it's harder to fact check something that wasn't originally in English, too.
Absolutely.
Maybe the writer was trying to get a job at the Onion.
Right, exactly. Well, you know what? I would give him one.
The translator.
Yeah, the translator. So.
All right, but in another episode of Where Are You Finding These Websites? Ian, you're off this one. John, Fellowship of the Minds. I mean, I just did
a Google search for the article, and I added the counterpoint because of that. Okay. The original article, I tried to open it up, and the article wasn't coming up. No page found, so I did a search to update the document, and I found the counterpoint, and it's like, okay, well, I'll stick it in there. Yeah. It's saying the opposite. We can debate it.
Yeah.
I just love the stuff we come up with in our eternal search for the truth. We do not leave any rock unturned.
No.
Fellowship of Minds is a conservative website, so...
one of their sections is called left-wing pathology. I'm going to have to go back, I guess.
Oh, it's fantastic.
All right.
So let's move on. You know what? Where Ian's going to tell us about Jew Watch. This is just fantic.
I think it needs its own 80s style TV theme.
You know what? If you think this was a joke, I thought we talked about this. Did we not talk about this?
Probably
I think we did it off the air.
We moved it, huh? So we must have talked about it in post or in prior. Okay, all right. So Ian, tell us about Jew Watch.
I can't remember how I found this site, but I found it and I was looking at it, and basically it is a site that claims how evil the Jews are and how they are set to take over the world. And you look through it, and it seems like just about everything can be blamed on the Jews. Everything.
Growing up with a Jewish grandmother, I'm not so sure they're wrong.
I felt dirty looking at this site. They're getting money off my clicks. Ew. I want to get away from here.
And of course, you have the anti-Holocaust stuff on here, saying that that was all a fraud. The Jews are apparently associated with 9/11, and Brian went and found one that's really close to home, claiming that basically the Columbine shootings were of Jewish origin.
Yeah, no, the reason I chose this, I did a search on their site for something in Colorado. I thought, well, I mean, there's so much here that we ought to find something local. And so they take the site and they take an article that somebody published and they say, but, they assert that these people got it wrong and then they tell you what actually happened here. With no references and no verification whatsoever. So most of this is absolutely fabricated and wrong. Even when they reference the Drudge Report, they don't link to it.
In a school that's going to be primarily Christian, 13 people are killed, and not one of them a Jew. Okay, so that obviously means that they specifically went around and.
No Jews.
It's not really
not high.
It's not really.
They're not hard to find. They're around.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Well, okay. So the point is that these areas are primarily Christian areas, and you're right. Most people at the school are going to be they're going to be Christians, and so when you go in and you start killing people, yes, the majority of the people you're going to kill are Christians. When statistically, that's what you've got to kill. They also go on,
and one could also make the argument about Columbine, though, that didn't they pretty much have a list of people that they were after? The kids who went in there, didn't they have a specific group of people they were after?
No, they were randomly.
They did have preferred targets, but they were willing to deviate.
But they were primarily targets that had bullied them. Isn't that
exactly?
Yeah. So it didn't matter. They didn't care their race, but then they also talk about these kids were gay, and that the Jew don't they
Jews' favorite group?
Yeah, the Jews' favorite group are the gays. The Jews have as many problems with the gays as anybody. I mean, look at the First Testament.
I thought the Jews' favorite group was the Jews.
Exactly, and that's true.
So who actually owns, updates, and or is the driving force behind this website?
I don't know.
That's not drive traffic, then.
Somebody with a lot of time, apparently.
No,
and
they're-
a lot,
James
a
They're
lot.
also implying that the Jews are that Russia is all Jewish, or that the USSR was Jewish, and
But no, they do give one
they
name.
persecuted
It
their
might be
Jews
worth
as
looking
much
up.
as anybody.
James Stenzel.
Stenzel.
Apparently,
I saw
yeah,
that.
he's the one who's presenting this. So
Maybe
don't
it's an
know
alias
anything
for Mel
about him,
Gibson.
but
What's that, Eric?
I said maybe it's an alias for Mel Gibson.
Right. This
He's
is
gotten in some trouble there, right?
this is clearly anti-Semitic.
Yeah, the picture at the top of the page is Zionist Leon Trotsky.
Yeah.
Okay, James Stenzel.
USSR
I'm looking
something,
for
not-
information
Not
on him.
religious.
He must be on Wikipedia, right?
Hope not.
Not finding a wiki page on him yet,
I mean, but
but
Jews, mind control, mechanics, but like I said, looking at just the one article, I mean, they assert so much information. There's no sources that they reference. And like I say, even when they call a source, they don't reference it. In here, in addition, the news media refused to report what was said in the Drudge Report. These two punks were homosexuals. Now, I don't know if that's true, but there's no, they reference the Drudge Report, but, there's no link there. You kind of got to go get it on your own, which I haven't done. But if it was the case, don't you think that they would link to the source and reference themselves? But that's really not part of their agenda.
People like that don't care about that.
Yeah.
It's not about
He's referencing
facts.
his
It's
own big
about
memories.
It's not about facts. It's promoting the paranoia that attracts people.
Well, and even the language. These punks were homosexuals. I mean,
Yeah.
It's certainly appealing to a very small section of people.
it is.
But you know
Now,
they
here's
have a
something interesting.
following.
I just turned up something interesting about Jew Watch on the Wikipedia page about them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the original owner of this was a guy by the name of Frank Weltner, and he had set up multiple websites soliciting funds for Katrina victims, and those funds were redirected to his website, Jew Watch.
Ooh.
So essentially, he was taking advantage of
Lovely.
people's compassion. Apparently, the Jews were behind the hurricane also.
Well,
Of course.
they've got to keep up because it was God who sent the earthquake to Haiti.
Well, I don't know. God did all the big stuff for the Jews in the Bible.
Well, they're the chosen people.
Wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know. There might be something to this. What do you think, Brian?
I don't know.
So,
He wiped
can I
out
ask you
Sodom and
guys
Gomorrah. He knocked down the walls of Jericho.
Hey, they had it coming.
Maybe somebody
You
opened the
don't
Lost
get
Ark
lost in
in
the desert for 30 years.
All right. Well, move on. What's the next article here? A fight
And
over
the
a
next one
girl.
actually
Can I ask you
kind of
guys
a
a question?
flashback to.
I'm sorry, Eric. Did you have something to add?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
As skeptics, do you guys get like a weird feeling in your gut when you start like diving into this kind of stuff? Because I just went on this website. I'm not even willing to dive into it because I feel kind of ill.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was my
to
reaction too.
be a skeptic,
Yeah.
you have to be willing to like really dive in and listen to the arguments, right?
Well, okay, I
do you
tried
do?
that. I chose an article,
Huh?
right? I chose an article to try and do that with, and it was so disgusting. The language of it was so disgusting that it's difficult to do. I don't know how you do that. I agree,
Yeah, there are times where it does get a bit hard.
right? But I went far enough to find an article that was local. What's that say about me?
It says you're committed.
You don't care about the rest of the world?
It shows
But
that
the
you
thing
browse
is,
globally but react locally.
If you want people to think about this stuff, there's a level of let's go and do it ourselves, and that way really these people don't have to. They can get the insight, at least, the initial idea of the existence of. Because a lot of people, you're right, a lot of people will avoid dealing with ideas they don't like. And to some extent, that's almost the purpose of podcasts like ours, is to look at ideas that people don't like to have to deal with and say, hey, listen, they're out there. Deal with them.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and do the research we do, but think about it. Look at it. We're giving you some facts. We're giving you some things to think about.
Well,
we
I'll
don't
tell you
expect
what.
you to go into the detail we go into.
Yeah, it is
But
much
we want
easier.
people to start thinking and being willing to at least acknowledge stuff like this that they don't like.
It's much easier to just look at Bigfoot and UFOs, quite frankly.
Yeah.
No, it's really hard to look at Bigfoot though, actually, because he's always blurry.
Well, that's true because of the wormholes.
You gotta be willing to dive into some of the ugly stuff
Yeah.
in order to learn about it, and to really
Right.
just say, okay, is there something to this? No, there isn't. But you got to be able to dive into
You know,
it.
it's.
And
Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt. You want to finish, Sean?
no, I was blathering.
Okay.
Oh, okay. No, it's interesting you should bring this up because I was thinking about it. One of the last articles that we put in there for fun was the crazy sex in the Bible one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
Yes.
just thinking about this, and we talked about the Bible a lot last week too. You know, with the Sodom and Gomorrah and Onan and all of these different things. And I came away from that podcast thinking to myself, you know, we spend a lot of our time trying to understand the Bible so that we can kind of argue it to the believers.
Right.
And I just kind of wonder, in a similar type of way of, you know, kind of digging in and getting it and understanding it, if we really are being effective, or if it is just a terrible waste of time, or what. And I don't have a real answer. I didn't come to a conclusion with my thought, but it's just kind of a weird, you know, I know people in the skeptical and atheist movement who really do spend a lot of time being able to fire back with chapter and verse with this kind of stuff. And I just kind of wonder, is that giving them more power that way? You know, and like I say, and by the same token, stuff like this Jew Watch thing, like, you know, you dive into it because you want to understand it so that you can refute it. But at what point does diving in literally drown you in the stupidity and the horror of it? I don't know. It was just a thought I had the other day about it.
It almost seemed like if you dove in too much, it would turn you into such a cynic to the human race, you know?
Right.
The more of this stuff, you'd be like, oh, God, are we just we can't call ourselves monkeys. That's an insult to monkeys.
You know, we do spend a lot of
You know,
time. We do spend a lot of time looking at stupid stuff. I mean, we
The best defense is something.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time looking at people's dumb arguments and trying to pick them apart. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, I think at some point it's necessary, but yeah, maybe it does. I mean, spending too much time on Jew Watch is probably going too far because it's a fringe element and it's probably not going to come up. And it's disgusting.
Another site that disturbed me greatly was, was it Christian Soldiers or something like that? Soldiers for God. And it was a site that was basically applauding people who go and kill abortion doctors and blow up abortion clinics.
Yes.
It was a site that was turning them all
And that
into
was
heroes.
pretty reprehensible.
And that was one that I went into, and that site really bothered me. But it's like, no, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see what they say. I want to see what their ideas are, not because I want to convince them, but because I want to see just how foolish they are, and I want to try and figure out this mindset because I don't believe that being ignorant of something is going to make you better about it. I believe if you know there's a problem out there and you face it and you start trying to learn about it, you're going to be more likely to be able to help others combat it as well. So to me, it's more about making sure I have the tools to look at this stuff and separate logic from stupidity, and that I'm able to actually pass that on in some ways, you know, to my kids, to other people that ask me about it. Because I'm actually surprised at how many conversations come up now where, thanks to having done the research here on Amateur Skeptics, I'm more knowledgeable than everyone else at the table and say, listen, this is what's going on with that issue you guys are talking about. Because a lot of people have just bits and pieces and don't do any more than that. And that's what they base ideas off of.
And also, Ian, you wouldn't want to get caught flat-footed someday. You know, you wouldn't want to suddenly have your kid pop up with this website and say, Dad, what's this about?
No, yeah.
Well, you know, I spent...
You got to find out about this stuff to be able to protect your kids.
Yeah. I know, and sometimes we spend a lot of times where, you know, the answer is up front and simple, but you dig into it more just so that you have more knowledge so that you can back up your argument even better. And
right.
Yeah. I guess stuff like this Jew Watch is just, it gets to a new level of disturbing. You know, the Bible pushers and things like that, or the proselytizers, that's one thing, but reading this kind of stuff, where it's, you know, it feels very hateful. That's tough.
Well, like I said, if you really want to move to the next level, I think it was Soldiers for Christ, Soldiers for God, something like that. That is a disturbing website. It is, you know, it's scary that they basically say these murderers are heroes and God will save them because they killed in the name of God kind of thing. And then of course you have God hates fags, stuff like those sites out there as well. There's a lot of hate out there.
The lovely Westboro Baptist Church.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's no end of it. That's the thing, is that there's no end, and we're being almost, I don't know, there's a complete wash of it, that just constantly is being washed over people of some of the stuff that people are doing to each other. Yeah. All right. Do we want to talk about the fight over the girl and God?
Or do we want to go on
Well,
to
it does
something
touch on
more
what we
fun?
talked about. It touches on what we talked about last week, which is the same-sex marriage being approved in New York. So I'd say let's talk about it.
All right. Go ahead.
All right, so the story is a lesbian couple. Let's see, who was it? Lisa Miller and Janet Jenkins. Basically, through in vitro fertilization, had a baby. Through, I think it was Lisa who actually gave birth. And for a while they had shared custody and were raising it. Then apparently, started in 2003, I guess, when Lisa Miller converted to Christianity and decided that her whole lesbian lifestyle had been evil and wrong. And so she took the daughter, who she legally only had joint custody of, and disappeared with her because she wouldn't let the daughter, the daughter can't be raised by an evil lesbian who's going to corrupt her spirit, basically. And there's actually a religious movement who's doing all they can to help Lisa and Isabella, who's the daughter, be safe from the other legal guardian of this young girl by hiding her in Nicaragua, I believe, is what they were saying, because how evil it is for the whole lesbian lifestyle. And like I said, there's a religious group who is actively doing all they can to hide the girl and Lisa Miller. It's
we are going to continue to see this kind of stuff until we can get rid of this fundamentalist idea that homosexuality is a choice. And Kim, you'll have to speak to this. Is it a choice? I've never heard a gay or lesbian person, homosexual person, who says, "Yeah, I made this choice." It's just the way they are. Most people.
It's every time I've ever seen it.
It's one of those ones. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, every time I've ever seen it, the person's always had a tendency toward it. Every time they've had a tendency toward it from a very early age.
Yeah.
So,
Kim?
I always find this a really disturbing conversation because, on the one hand, certainly I can't imagine being in a relationship with a guy. I just don't think it would work for me. So in that sense, it's not a choice. But the sense that if it were simply a choice, that it would be unacceptable as a choice, seems to me to be the biggest amount of bullshit.
Okay.
And I don't like playing the science card I was born gay. I don't want to play God made me this way.
But I guess
it doesn't matter if it's a choice or not.
But the reason that,
in my opinion, but at the same time, I don't think it's a fair
argument. Yeah, that's a really good argument.
Yeah. And in this case, in the article, the only reason that the lifestyle was bad is because it's lesbian goes against God's word. There's nothing in it about abuse, anything wrong being done. You read some of this, sounds like they probably had a fairly good situation. So the only evil thing that they're protecting from is the lesbian lifestyle, and that's it.
Well, the reason I brought that up is, I have a friend, Clint, and we've had this discussion, and he says there's no reason that I would choose this. And so, but I understand your point that even if it was a choice, why would that matter? I get that too.
And that's the
I don't like the idea of science deciding this one.
No, I think you make a good point. The only reason that the other thing is that their excuses is that and it's a slippery slope argument, right? So it's not valid. But if we make gay marriage legal, then more people will choose to have gay marriages, and there'll be less straight people, and eventually we won't. The population won't reproduce, which is an insane argument.
Well, because we'll all be marrying animals, remember.
We're programmed to reproduce.
Let me throw this out there about this situation. There's one thing about this situation that makes me happy, which is that the law is actively supporting her and actively supporting not Lisa Miller, but actively supporting her partner, Janet Jenkins, in trying to get her child back and essentially to take the take the parent, the non-custodial parent, into custody.
And they're saying a life in hiding, running from the police, is going to be better for this little girl than being raised by a lesbian.
That's just disgusting.
In what sounds like a stable home. Like, no, we can't have you in a stable home because there's a lesbian charge. We have to take you on the run. Make sure you're hiding. Make sure you can't really make much in the way of friends or anything like that because you're going to be on the run for your life. Like, wait a moment, that's better?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and the Mennonites are kind of a little weird group anyway. I mean, if you get into, they're one of these kind of smaller little fringe Christian groups. I would not, even though I'm not a fan of any kind of real Christian religion, these guys are really kind of on the edge of the thing. So it's not too surprising that they would be kind of behind this illegal thing in order to make their point, because that's kind of who they are.
Yeah.
Aren't they similar in some of their beliefs to the Amish? I believe that they are.
Yeah, I think so.
They're all about simplicity, and they're all about.
But there's a range too. There are
I
Amish.
have to admit,
I was going to say there are Amish that live in houses and have electricity now. I mean, there's a range just like anything else.
They're Nuevo Amish.
Yeah, it's a spectrum disorder.
And they are one of those groups that really preaches peace and everything, but they are pretty fringy about it. So.
Yeah,
I'd have a hard time though.
I think before we got it full time.
Yeah,
I'd have a hard time seeing, a group of Amish, on a fast getaway, trying to get this Lisa Miller away from custody.
Well, there's the Amish man that was picking up, young girls, and he showed up in his horse and buggy. That was just a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Did it work?
Apparently it was a sting operation and he got caught. All right, Ian. The next two articles.
They knew he
was
yours. Amish because he was chatting in these and thous. Let me just throw this one little thing.
All right,
there.
stir the pot a little more.
Clippity clop, bang, reload, bang, reload, bang.
Amish drive-by.
Yeah, Amish drive-by.
Amish drive-by.
All right, Ian. You have a choice. You have two articles here. Which one do you want to conclude with? Oh, you have three articles.
I want to conclude with the raunchy Bible thing.
You want to go with the raunchy Bible?
We have two.
You can conclude.
I would really go with the 9/11 hate crime victim seeks to save his attacker.
And then follow the raunchy Bible. I want to mention the raunchy Bible.
You get one more article. Whatever the next thing is, you wrap up with.
Okay, we'll save the raunchy Bible next time.
All right.
This
one
the
raunchy Bible thing is mine.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, take a look.
No, it is. All right.
I just secretly edited that.
Oh, is that what it was?
It's right there. I see it.
Whatever. Fine. We'll do the 9/11 hate crime victims, and then we'll go ahead and we'll finish up with
Raunchy Bible.
With
Okay,
your
the
raunchy
Bible. Something positive, because as we have often said, we're not trying to judge religion, and when we see some religious person doing it right, we want to praise them because there is value in their beliefs, taking them on the right path. And this is definitely one of those cases. Apparently, about a week and a half after the September 11th attacks, a man in Dallas went around and was shooting Muslims. He would just walk in. If he thought they were Muslims, he would shoot them. And one of his victims, who was shot in the face and survived, is talking in this article. He talks about all the harm done to him and his family, and how his family didn't know if he was going to live or die, and that caused problems with them, and there was a lot of issues. But in the end, and this is one of those things that obviously the anti-Muslim crowd is going to hate. His words are, "I strongly believe executing him is not a solution. We will just simply lose a human life without dealing with the root cause, which is hate crime. In Islam, it says that saving one human life is the same as saving the entire mankind. Since I forgive him, all those principles encouraged me to go even further and stop his execution and save another human life." He's saying that his teachings tell him to forgive this guy. And say, just killing him's not going to solve anything. You have to work on something more than that. And that's definitely where the problem lies in this kind of thing. And this is one of those things that, to me, is religion being very positive and doing the right thing for once. And it's always good to see.
All right.
There's another quote up here, a couple paragraphs up, says, "According to my faith in Islam, there is no hate. no killing. It doesn't allow anything like that. Yes, Mark Stroman did a horrible thing, and he brought a lot of pain and disaster, sufferings in my life. But in return, I never hated him. This man is a beautiful, beautiful human being.
Oh, yeah. And
All right.
that's the idea everyone should live by. And not enough people, Christian, Muslims, any religion, not enough people live by that idea. They get hurt. They see others hurt. They want to blame someone. We even just talked about Jew Watch, Soldiers for Christ, God Hates Fags. All those, we talk about that stuff so often. The negative groups, the groups that really, spread the hate, cause the problems. And we don't talk about this kind of stuff enough. And so I always love it when I see something like this and we can focus on and say, hey, listen, despite what we often talk about, there is positive people out there who believe in the religions. And, they
This
just
man
don't
is
get
still-
hurt enough.
Right.
This man is still carrying half a face full of birdshot,
Yeah.
and he can forgive.
Well, we certainly talk about the vocal minority here, right? We talk about that. We talk about the ones that are the most vocal
Right.
because they do the most harm.
Yes.
So.
But, and once more, we've said before, and I just said a little bit ago, I'll say it again, we're not anti-religion. We're anti-stupid religion that causes problems.
All right. Okay, so you guys want to trash the Bible now? And we should preface this with, this is
That's
at
why I showed
cracked.com, right? So the six
Another thing
raunchiest,
from
most
crack.com, we love
depraved
Crack.
sex
Crack
acts
is a
from the
great
Bible.
Site.
It's tongue-in-cheek, okay?
Yes, but it's based on what's really in the Bible.
Well.
The 6 raunchiest, most depraved sex acts from the Bible.
Well, and this is
Which tongues
funny.
are being applied to which cheeks?
Yeah.
All right.
So it goes through
So-
the infamous Lot and his daughters,
Yes.
and how, what kind of wine was he drinking ought to be so drunk he doesn't remember getting it on with his daughters 2 nights in a row.
It was roofies.
Yep, they make a reference to that later. Then it goes into, come on.
Job. And the 2 sisters. Yeah, it's Job, 2 sisters, and what the hell, a handmaiden?
Jacob. It's Jacob.
Jacob. Oh, I'm sorry, Jacob. Jacob.
Yeah, well, apparently a switcheroo was pulled. He thought he was getting to hook up with the attractive daughter, but the father switched, and he ended up with the unattractive daughter. And there's something in it that makes it sound like the handmaiden was in there watching. And then, of course, after he hooks up with the unattractive daughter, he says, well, I'll work another 7 years to get your second daughter.
Is that the first recorded bait and switch?
Oh. Well, when you're brown bagging it,
Then next we have...
God gives tips
next
on
one
how to
is-
hold your
the
load.
next one I talked about last time, and I have the name now. Onan, who, as we said, is basically, his story is the reason why they claim that masturbation is a bad thing. Now, this one I really love because it got into the fact that it's talking about spilling seed. So why is it bad for a woman to masturbate? Because it doesn't actually say that in the Bible at all. They even give the impression of that.
See, but we
So,
can relate this back to a serial killer that killed President Kinsey, who was a member of a sect that believed that men should learn to hold their load and when they're having sex.
Okay, I'm going to coin a new word here. Onangasm.
Orgasm.
Yep.
All right. And what else you got?
So
Yeah.
the-
What's the last one?
On to page 2.
Let
I
me
thought
throw
you
this
was
The
in here
first
real
one
quick. Ian.
is actually Onan's father.
Hold on. Okay.
What?
I was just going to say this thing about the counter argument. What if God has no righteous purpose for your semen on that particular day and you're just bored?
I thought she was a prostitute, but she was my daughter-in-law.
Next time on Maury.
This is the same family as Onan, okay? So apparently his father's trying to pick up a prostitute, and he doesn't realize at the time that it's actually his daughter-in-law who's the one that Onan was supposed to knock up. But this is because he was wearing a veil. And they make a whole big thing about how veils apparently are a great excuse in the Bible as to ending up in the wrong person, as we saw with the Jacob thing. Because all he was doing was wearing a veil. Now, I love the end here. It's like, note that the first key feminine above is the same who got to witness Onan being slain by the Lord for whatever, getting right back on the horse, Only instead of a horse, it's Judah, Onan's dad. Score. If you don't think that's hot, you've never been to a really drunk family reunion where everyone's wearing veils and no one is aware it's a family reunion.
All right, Sodom gives boobies 10 fingers up.
Apparently, one of the verses titled Song of Solomon is all about breasts. You gotta love the Bible when it goes. You see, that would have made it worth reading. I mean, if every couple pages they have a whole big obsession with breasts, that would be
God and girls.
But you read it and it just is really obsessed with breasts.
God and girls.
Although the best one is, my beloved put his hand by the hole of the door, and my bowels were removed for him.
Oh man! All right. It's like going down the sewer in a glass boat. I may be in the shit, but I'm clearly above it.
I thought the view wasn't very pleasant.
God and girls, go.
Yes, the final one is referring to giants hooking up with the average female. Apparently it's in Genesis. There were giants on the earth in those days, and when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children, the same became mighty men. And this definitely goes to some messed up place, because they're talking about how legitimately you would think if a giant man hooked up with a normal-sized female, that would be one big-ass baby. And
that's definitely not natural childbirth.
All
there.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something fun, something to, you want some good laughs, definitely read. I always recommend Crack.com. They're great at the tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. They take real stuff, it's really out there, and,
all right,
work with it.
Is there anything else?
This actually kind of outkinks Zeus in Greek mythology.
No.
All right. Is there anything else?
Eric, you're still saying Zeus tops it. You may
Golden
be right.
rain. Golden rain.
Right.
Golden showers, bestiality. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Eric Muir, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Yeah, we're off
we
the rails.
enjoyed you tonight, Eric.
Are you sure you want to be associated with this?
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Hey, say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. All right. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.